Hey, I'm Jen McIntyre, and I'd like to tell you about some of the books that had the most influence on me when I decided to homeschool. So homeschooling is this really big decision for most people, and it takes a lot of support, but a lot of times that support doesn't come in the form of other people, it comes in the form of books. And so I want to share with you the 4 most impactful books that I found when I was first deciding to homeschool. The first one that I talked about in another video in great detail is the Thomas Jefferson Education, and this has 7 different principles of teaching and mentoring, and it has been really influential in my ability to learn how to teach because I just didn't know how. And so it was really helpful to have something that sort of walked me along that path. And really, in a lot of ways, this book is an answer to one of the other books that I read that I don't have a copy of that book, but it's called Dumbing Us Down by John Taylor Gatto. And he was like the New York State Teacher of the Year or something. And he gave this speech that was really scathing, like singe your eyebrows. Wow, that was really powerfully against public school. And when I first read it, I thought, holy cow, ease up, you're going to make a lot of enemies here. But by the same token, he really wasn't saying, I don't like teachers or I don't like principals. He was just saying the structure of public school is set up in such a way to create conformity and to create people who are really good followers. And that's what we're teaching. And then he goes through, these are all the tools that we use. We use bells, we use lockers. You can't even go to the bathroom without my permission. I hand out grades that determines your value as a human being, and I make sure you understand that by making it a big deal. And I mean, he goes through every single thing. And when I first read it, I just thought, that is the most discouraging book I have ever read. But this book by Oliver DeMille really answers all of those problems and says this is how you can teach your kids in a way that allows them to be leaders and not conformist and not followers. And the next book is just the next book in the TJ Ed series. This first book is kind of the philosophy of TJ Ed. It tells you what is TJ Ed, what is leadership education, and basically how do you do it. This book is quite a bit bigger, and it actually has a ton of information of what does it look like on a day-to-day basis. How can I teach my little ones and my middle-aged ones and my older ones, and what if I have all of them at the same time? And how do I structure my days, and how do I structure my weeks? And it goes into all of that in this book. So this is called The Phases of Learning, and I would say you probably can't skip that first book because you have to have that foundation, but this one was way more helpful to me. As I was reading, I thought, okay, now I know how to implement all of these ideas and principles. So I loved this book. And this is the last book that has been really helpful for me when I first started homeschooling, and it is called For the Love of Learning, Giving Your Children a Lollipop Education by Amy Edwards. And lollipop is actually spelled with 1 L and not 2 because it stands for Love of Learning Integrated with Projects, Opportunities for Service, and Play. So the whole idea of this book is to say when your kids are between about 8 and 12 to 14 years old, how exactly do you teach them using projects? And she walks you through step by step, how do you build a project? And I'm actually going to make a video on how to make projects, but I will use this as the outline for how to do that because it is so powerful. And it takes this idea of project-based learning, which is so different from what we have in public school, and really fleshes it out and says this is how you can build it and this is how you can implement it and this is what it will look like. You don't do it every single day, but you do it maybe once a week, and these are all the different components of it. So I love that book. It's very freeing and very opening to the idea of I can do a lot of things that I'm comfortable with and at the same time incorporate projects which make learning so much more fun. So those 4 books have been the most impactful for me when I first started homeschooling. If you haven't read them, I encourage you to pick them up and read them because they have been very inspiring for me to see not only what I don't want, but what I do want and how to get there. And that can be really helpful when there are so many options. Thank you, and I will catch you on the next one.